Hello, Deacon Eric here. I'm here in Kansas City, which is where I live. Smoking a Missouri Meerschaum pipe. Been made here for, what does it say? Since, 1878 or 1883. That's when it was registered, but patented on July 9th in 1878. That's what it says on the sticker here. And where I'm sitting, I thought about it. I had to go run some errands, and instead of going to one of my usual spots, not too far from there, I had to kind of trek through some tall grass. May have to pick some ticks for getting over here, but if you can see over here to my right, this little divot, what that is, this is what's left of a section of the 3 trails. So Kansas City is known as, it's one of the places where the 3 trails, the Oregon Trail, the California Trail, and the more even older Santa Fe Trail, all passed through here. And so there's, right here by where I'm sitting, there's another little section that you cross over here, and there's several spots throughout the city where you can see the old ruts from the wagons where the trail was pushed down, right? So that's these trails, they made this roadway and it just naturally pushed the ground down. And I've seen parts of the trails in several places, especially the Santa Fe Trail, where I worked for the Boy Scouts out there in New Mexico. There's these spots where the ruts are from the Santa Fe Trail. So it's just kind of fitting being in a spot like this, thinking about America coming up on 250 years, 250th birthday of America on July 4th. You know, even before that, right, there's hundreds of years of history, and even farther back than, you know, with the natives. So there's tons of history in America, and there's history everywhere. America's rather young in compared to some nations, you know. But we don't care about that these days. We care about what's happening now. But it's good to think about what has been. Smoking tobacco. Right, tobacco is a new world thing. Tomatoes, potatoes. Thinking about these things. But it's kind of nice to just sit here and smoke out of a corncob pipe. And think about history. And yeah, so this area, this is one of the gateways to the West back in the day. And one of my favorites was a man named Kit Carson. So Kit Carson, when he was 12, he came from Kentucky originally, but when he was 12, he made his way here, and he got on the Santa Fe Trail somehow, and as a kid, made his way to Santa Fe. Became a hunter and a guide, and he became famous because he took a military unit over the Sierras in wintertime. He was in the Mexican-American War. He was an Indian fighter, and then later a friend of the Indians in that area. And so Kit Carson was always one of my favorite mountain men, especially when I did guide work out in New Mexico. I'd always tell the story of Kit Carson. because there's two museums out there that were his houses. Yeah, there's all kinds of history of mountain men and western pioneers coming out of this area. Some of them buried here. And so history is just such an interesting thing. I've always loved history. I think it's good to be a student of history, because if you can't really know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And so your own history is important, to remember your past, to learn from your past, good or bad, right? Some people have bad things in their past, and instead of trying to forget it, it's good to learn from it and to use it. And you can find healing, right? Sometimes it's very traumatic and it's not easy to deal with. But to find healing, right? And that's what the power of God. God can heal all wounds. And transform it into something that is healing for others. And just so thinking about America and everybody, there's a lot of groups that want to say America's horrible and bad and all this other stuff. Well, so's every other country. Every country has had people in it, and there's bad people and good people. America's racist, slavery, all this other stuff. Well, the slaves that were brought here, they may have been brought on European ships, but they were loaded on European ships by other Africans. Africans were enslaving Africans because people, when they went to war, they enslaved each other. And it took hundreds of years for Christianity to finally break through and tell people that slavery was bad. Interesting to note that in medieval Europe, now, there's another question about serfdom and tyranny in a different form. But as far as outright slavery, as what, everybody talks about, slavery didn't exist in medieval Europe because of Christianity. Eventually it got pushed out because of Christianity. You couldn't enslave people. Now there was still, people found their way around it. Serfdom, the feudal system was not necessarily good. It was a very elitist system where there was powerful landowners and rich people that ruling over people. But at the same time, it all depended on the king, all depended on the Lord. Maybe he was a good Lord, maybe things were well. And the thing was, in the feudal system, is you were tied to the land. So the land you were in, that Lord could not just easily kick you off it. He had to make sure his people had land to live on. And so there was a piece where the Lord served the people. But there were good people and bad people across the board. But I don't think that's the best system either. But 250 years ago, the best system that mankind has ever come up with, and our Constitution, I think, is the best system that's ever been. Why? This is the major reason. It takes into account the wickedness of man. And I'm no Puritan, and America in its founding has a very Puritan base, but there's some good parts of it. And because the Constitution understood that you had to protect the common man from tyranny, and part of that was to create checks and balances, because they knew and understood what men do when they took power. And it is amazing that the first president of the United States, George Washington, gave up power. He could have become a king, right? Oliver Cromwell, he became the Lord Protector, and the only thing that stopped him was his death. So even though in their minds, Cromwell and the Puritans threw off the yoke of the tyranny of the King of England, right? Which you can debate. I'm an Anglican, and so, you know, I have mixed feelings about all this stuff. But he just became a de facto king. And the only thing that stopped that movement that would have been just as tyrannical, even if not more so, was that his son was weak. And so the kings came back. But that spirit of revolution that was in the Puritans, that's what led to America. Now there was other voices coming in. Now one of those voices that's as interesting, out of the Enlightenment, you have this resurgence of slavery. You have this resurgence of European superiority. That's the colonial period. And so it is a mixed bag. And so it brings about, you know, the transcontinental, the slave trade. And so, interesting to note, it took another few hundred years to get rid of slavery again. But who got rid of slavery? Christians. White Christians. Right? And so slavery is, and it continues to this day. Right now, while I'm filming this, is the World Cup. Right? And it's interesting to note that all these Europeans and other people, they're coming to America and they're realizing how awesome America is. It really is awesome. It's a beautiful land. It's such a gift. But right now, and it's super sad, because of the World Cup, any large sporting event, but especially the World Cup, which is the largest sporting event in the world, more than the Olympics, more than the Super Bowl, obviously, there's human trafficking going on a grand scale. And so human trafficking, both sexual exploitation, labor, all that stuff. There's more slavery going on now, probably than ever before, because there's more people. But it's not outright legal slavery, right? So it's been made illegal, but it still goes on. And it goes on because there's corrupt people in power, right? Because there's corrupt people. Why would you trust the government, right? There's all these young people that they want to be socialist and Democrat because they think we just need the right people in government. No, there's never been the right people in government. You've got to have checks and balances. That's why the Constitution is written the way it is. I'll pause it because it's trained. There are going to be some jump cuts in this video, and that's alright. So the genius of the Constitution, 250 years, the grand experiment of America. It's under threat. And there's no one saying that it was perfect. But it's the best thing that's ever come along. That's what they're saying. But people want perfection. They want utopianism because they've grown up with everything and they just want more. They've grown up with more than anybody has ever had ever. And all they want is more. They want perfection in this life. They have this utopian vision. And these other things and people are in their way of their little greedy, selfish way of life. And they want to rebel and they want to do what they want to do. And they're not thinking about history and how rough it has been for humanity, for most nations throughout history. We have more privilege, no matter what color you are, in this country than anywhere else in the world. And in any time in history, I'm going to throw it all away because of stupidity. But what we need is people that have the guts, like these pioneers that went on this trail, to say, no, we're going to forge a new path. And may God raise up those people. May God raise us up. May I contribute a part, right? My little part to it. May I have the boldness and the courage to withstand the onslaught, to just raise my children in a righteous way, because they're our hope. They are my hope that things can be better, that not everything is lost. I am not with the people who are said, oh, it's all over. Hey, I've been watching this slow spiral downward for 2 decades, and I have more hope than I've ever had. I really do. And all this stuff that's bubbling up, that's so wicked, it's all been there, just growing and festering. And here's the hopeful part, is that all those powers that want to take over and to tyrannize us, in the name of some cockamamie utopianism, they've been there this whole time. We're just being exposed, right? All this stuff is exposing them. So my prayer, and I believe it, I see it, people are waking up. Young men are going to church. That gives me great hope. I know I'm kind of becoming an old timer now. I got the white in my beard. I'm 40 years old. So, I'm an old millennial. But I still got a 19 on the front of my birthday year. I'm from the last century, man. So I'm an old timer now. But my prayer is that people with a 20 in front of their birthday, born after the year 2000, that they will listen to the Holy Spirit. They will listen to wisdom. They will see that nihilism is not their fate. There isn't just that, but they can have hope again. That they can get, I'm sitting here putting this out on the internet, but I hope that they can break free of the stranglehold of the internet and use it as a tool and get to meet people face to face. Touch skin, touch the earth, right? Smell things, see things, enjoy life. I saw this funny meme, but it was true. And it said there's something about, and it kind of started in my 30s too. Something about being in your 30s, and then one day, all of a sudden, you're going to be all into birds. And it's showing all these birds, and I'm like, yeah, I love birds. And recently, I'll just end with this story, just the beauty of creation and life. I'm sitting there, I'm just smoking a pipe with my brother-in-law. They were up here visiting, and we're having a good talk. And it's funny, we're talking about spiritual warfare and stuff, because there's invisible stuff going on. And so, but God's at work, and God is greater. And the Creator, I don't know, to me, just sent this beautiful gift. I've never seen this bird before, and he's pretty rare. I see, and it looked like a swallow, but it was farther off, and it was huge. And I was like, my brain was trying to compute what I was seeing, because I was like, it's big, like a hawk, but the shape of it was more like a swallow type bird. And I'm watching it. It was just, it was all happening right away, and then it lands on this tree, kind of not far from me. And I was like, what is that? And the way it sat up in the tree was like a hawk, like a bird of prey. And I go, that is a wild looking bird. And it had this striking dark gray outer wings and like this light gray, almost white body and head. And so I went and grabbed my binoculars, and I'm looking at this thing, and yeah, it had this dark gray wings, and it was all standing, and it was looking around, and it was clearly a bird of prey. And it was this almost striking white looking head with a big curved beak, but it had these black sections. It looked like, like raccoon, or like aviator sunglasses. This cool looking cucumber, man. He was up there, and he was just like, he meant business, but he was striking. And I was like, I gotta look this up. And so I found it, and it was called a Mississippi kite. So kites, I had heard of them before, and I kind of remember them back from when I was a biology major in college. But kites, they're like small hawks, but they're built like giant. They're like a giant swallow, but also a small hawk. So they're super graceful, and they fly like a swallow almost. They do these big swooping through the air. And yeah, he was just striking. And the other day, I saw this little male summer tanager, like really close, just bright red, right? As red as my chair here. Just really close to me, just kind of said hello. And I've increasingly been more and more just birds, and I got little girls, and so I'm trying to teach them about the world. And so I went ahead and got me a birding book. I'm not going to quite go into there's that movie called The Big Year with Jack Black and Steve Martin and was it Owen Wilson, where they're like trying to see as many birds as possible in 1 year. It's kind of funny. It's a cute movie. And I'm not going to go that crazy. I'm not going to leave my family for a year just to look at birds. But I get it. But I want to try keeping a list, right? Because I've seen eagles, I've seen beautiful owls. There's all kinds, just birds, flowers, insects, right? Insects, just all the colors of these things, of creation, of God's just beauties put into the earth. I mean, the stars, trees. Just look around. It's so beautiful. You cannot be outside. If you're inside, is how you become a nihilist. You're inside and you're isolated in your own head, and everything becomes meaningless. But if you get outside and you start to pay attention and look with your eyes and listen and smell, taste, touch, use your senses in creation, you quit being a nihilist, because it's popping with color and life and beauty. It's amazing creation. There must be a creator. It's so far beyond, Darwinistic evolution. The pure variety and color, and it doesn't make sense with just a materialistic worldview. There's this deep beauty in creation, right? And that's what inspires the poets. The poets, they're looking at creation. They're looking at the beauty of humanity, the beauty of nature, and that the Creator of all things cares about us. And you begin to deeply care about creation and deeply care about other people. And other people become more important than your own desires. That's the most fulfilling way to live. And politics just becomes this side thing. The point of politics is so that we can all function together as people. But it doesn't become the main thing. The main thing is living in harmony and peace with your neighbor. And doing life together. So get out, they say touch some grass, touch the earth. Enjoy life. It's not get out of your nihilistic nightmare. And get out there and, smell the roses, so to speak. Right now, you go outside, there's no like just silence. There's bugs and spring peepers. Like right now, the air is full of little sounds of birds and bugs talking and singing and chirping and all that. It's wonderful. Get out there and enjoy life. Quit being so sad and nihilistic. All right? Enjoy it. Read history. Enjoy your story. The good, the bad, and the ugly. See, because the triumph, if things are bad, the triumph is so much more beautiful. Right? If you're so engrossed in slavery, well, look, we got rid of it. And right now, if you're honest, the only thing holding people of color back is this mindset that they can't do anything. But it's not true. The American dream is still there for you if you take hold of it. You're holding yourself back. Get out there. Get out there and care for other people. Serve other people. Do what you can. Make some money. Enjoy life. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your kids. Enjoy the people around you. Enjoy people and serve people, and you'll be a much happier person. Amen. Amen. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May He shine His face upon you and give you His shalom.